Welcome to the Basement League Show, and this is the Heriton Chronicles, The Adventures of the Crimson One, Trial by Sand and Flame, narrated by AJ the producer. 18-year-old Flight Lieutenant Damien Ray stood on the observation gallery of the Phoenix Naval Academy's highest flight deck, arms folded over his dress tunic. Below, claw fighters and marine jump transports gleamed beneath the hangar's prismatic lights. 3 years of grueling 18-hour simulator shifts, zero-gravity endurance drills, and night-long study marathons had forged him into the Academy's top pilot. Yet, every time Admiral Oro passed in his gleaming bronze braid and barked, "To flame!" Damien's spine stiffened with the fear of failing the Torios, who'd plucked him from Earth's gutters. He inhaled, recalling how Sakessa's so-called Yellow Wand had closed his bones and awakened alien strength. He inhaled, recalling how Sakessa's so-called Yellow Wand had closed his bones and awakened alien strength the night he first awoke on Phoenix. Sakessa, emerald-eyed, hair braided with living vines, had since withdrawn to Coralax in the Ocean Nebula to vie for her champion's mantle. Champions, he learned, were warrior scholars imbued with extraordinary gifts. Some, like Sakessa, chosen in infancy, others, like war-forged King Phoenix, made by fire and iron. Damien yearned for that honor, but he knew he'd never outshine Bellaton, his adopted brother. Bellaton had come from Veraxio, a world where science and sorcery coexisted. When armored conquerors who worshipped only domination swept the planet under a night of fire, only 200 children survived. Among them was Bellaton, who'd sworn vengeance beneath smoking ruins. He and Damien met on refugees' transports. Damien broken by his own father's fist, Bellaton hollowed by loss. Sakessa's healing beam had mended Damien's flesh. Bellaton's steady hand had helped him stand. In those fragile hours, they'd become brothers. But vengeance breeds loneliness. Bellaton graduated 2 years early from the academy, becoming a phalanx fighter ace with over 50 kills. Each victory burned a hole in the grief in his heart. He saw Damien's strength, the Yellow Wand, Admiral Oro's tutelage as borrowed, viewing second place as an insult beneath his boots. Damien felt guilt for his friend's torment, and Admiral Oro would remind him, "Bellaton's people are forged in vengeance. Yours must be forged in purpose." Even so, the rift between them widened. Damien, smallest of the Crimson 13, felt the old familiar tremor of fear as he slid into Crimson One's cockpit. Even in the claustrophobic confines of the jump transport, the thrum of its fusion engines vibrated through his bones, matching the pounding in his chest. Around him, the squad moved like giants. Sergeant Blizzard's deep rumble as he barked final orders. Corporal Korga's calm precision as she checked her sniper rifle. Sergeant Vex's forearms adjusted heavy barrels. Private Tharn's bass growl as he strapped on his melee gauntlets. In the dim red glow of the cockpit, Damien reminded himself that these were not gods. They were his comrades. Each one a soldier shaped by hardship, loyalty, and sacrifice. Commander Blizzard had once been a frontier rancher on Taurus Prime before the Civil Wars drove him to enlist. His blue fur was flecked with silver from years of ice-swept campaigns. Blizzard believed in duty above all else, forging his squad into a unit as reliable as the gravity plates beneath their boots. Beneath the gruff exterior lay a protective instinct. He considered every Marine under his command a son or daughter. In campfires long past, he taught Damien that strength meant more than muscle. and meant standing when everyone expected you to fall. Corporal Korga, the Rothi sniper, carried the haunted calm of a hunter who lost her pack. She spoke little, her golden eyes scanning horizon for threats. Rumor had it she once dismantled an entire guerrilla cell on her homeworld with a single shot at 3 kilometers. To Damien, watching her work was observing a spider at its web, every movement deliberate, every breath measured. Yet in the rare moments when she relaxed, she offered quiet counsel. Aim true, pilot. Sometimes the smallest bullet can turn the tide. Sergeant Vex's 4 massive arms and armored plating were more like battlefield's assets. They were a living testament to survival. Born on a satellite where gravity shifted unpredictably, she learned early to adapt. Her laughter came in warm, breathy puffs that contrasted with her reputations for leveling armor hives with her quad-barreled cannons. Vexa insisted on tradition. No Marine left behind. No fire mission concluded until the wounded were bagged and the dead given ceremony. PFC Tharn, the Gorak's heavy hitter, looked fearsome with his chiseled tusk and muscular frame. But Damien knew him as one who shared rations when supplies ran low and cracked jokes to keep the platoon's spirit alight. His gruff bass voice had narrated late-night training sessions, his laughter echoing over the clang of weighted drills. When the weight of the world pressed in, Thrawn's presence reminded Damien of a safe home, a simple village far from war's endless horizon. Lieutenant Sarah, the avian rescue specialist, carried gray feathers and wings built for precision dives into atmospheres. She plucked stranded miners from firestorms and pulled entire squads from the jaws of collapsing craters. Damien admired her fierce dedication. When the alarm sounded, she didn't hesitate. Her sharp, talon-edged commands cut through panic, guiding medics and civilians away from harm. In the cockpit's comm feed, her cry for help would be the signal that everything had gone wrong. Her sharp, talon-edged commands cut through panic, guiding medics and civilians away from harm. In the cockpit's comm feed, her cry for help would be the signal that everything had gone wrong. Operative Brack moved in silent hisses and clicks, a crawl whose stealth recon missions had mapped enemy strongholds from the inside out. His eyes glittered like obsidian in the darkness. Dame remembered one debrief where Brack described infiltrating a private throne room to disable his power core. No alarms, no shots, just a quiet hiss of a blade. Brack's loyalty ran deep. He would sacrifice himself without a second thought to save another. Tech Specialist Exie, half cyborg and wholly brilliant, tapped into her integrated data pads with precision. Her bright calculated tone decoded alien transmitter frequencies in seconds, rerouting corruption encryption like it was child play. Damien relied on her to keep Crimson One's navigation systems humming, even when ion storms threatened to fry their circuits. And somehow supply stabilization fields when it mattered the most. Corporate Grum, the Uroth enforcer, stood so broad that he filled the transport's rear hatch. His grunt and bare-knuckle simplicity belied a surprising intellect in hand-to-hand combat. When crisis hit, Grum would throw himself into the breach, shielding Marines from debris, breaking through barricades with bone-shattering punches. Damien trusted that if the drop bay turned into chaos, Grum would hold the line. Lieutenant Zir, the Saurian close-quarter specialist, carried a shock blade in each claw. Swift as a cobra strike, he moved through foes with lethal grace. On training nights, Damien had watched Zir clear simulation rooms in seconds. No wasted motion, no hesitation. When the squad needed someone to breach enemy fortifications at point-blank range, Zir was the first through the breach and the last to leave. Private Loxa, the Hydran pugilist, leaped and bounded with frog-like ability. His small frame contained explosive powder. He bounced from cover to cover, delivering precision strikes that felled exo-clad raiders. Damien had once nearly collided with him during a zero-G drill. Lox's laughter echoing the chambers as they both tumbled into orbit. In combat, those same reflexes protected Marines pinned under fire. His gelath physiology suited to soothing wounds with bioluminescent nanites. His soft, reassuring voice calmed the terrified, and his hands glowed with warmth in the coldest of trenches. He carried burdens no one else could see, the knowledge of lives lost and drive to save each one he could reach. Yen and Damien were around the same age, and both had become very close friends. PFC Nas, the Trillian field engineer, maintained the squad's kit with mechanical devotion. His humming as he welded joint seals or rerouted power to damaged barricades was oddly comforting. Damien had watched him coax a dying plasma torch back to life with nothing but a handful of salvage parts and sheer stubbornness. Nas believed every tool was sacred. As Crimson One's engines roared to life, Damien closed his eyes, recalling each face and calm command. He keyed the intercom. Below, the planet's dusty horizon curved beneath a violet dawn. The village lay in a no-man's land of shattered silos and billowing smoke. The golden dunes stretched into oblivion. As his team's drop pods fired from transport, streaking through sulfur-laced sky, the wind screamed in Damien's ears as he watched digital readouts cascade across his HUD. At 0600 hours, they erupted onto Ares' battered surface. The settlement was a fresco of ruin. Domes cleaved open like shells, grain spills glittered in the sun, and scattered bioluminescent tents marked the survivors' last stand. Then the sand crab reared. 50 meters long and 20 across, its ceramic carapace gleamed like a dark sun. Its multiple eyes rotated independently, tracking each marine as if calculating the most efficient way to crush bone and sinew. Plasma bolts sizzled into its hide. Proto-grenades rippled the air. Vex's cannons unleashed torrents of rounds, but each assault only emboldened the beast, sending spiderweb cracks through its shell without breaching. On the comms link, Lieutenant Sarah's frantic voice cut through the panic. Eastome, medic, and civilians trapped. Need support now. Flames licked the breached silo walls, sending plumes of red smoke into the hazy sky. Blades of dust devils spun in the distance. The squad was fractured. Blizzard led half to the suppressive fire, Korga vaulted into sniper advantage, and Vexa and Tharn formed a defensive line. Zur and Brock slipped into the shadow of a collapsed wall to flank. Yen and Grum huddled with the survivors and the barn's wreckage, trying to ease broken limbs as the crab's thunderous steps shook the ground. Damien hovered above in Crimson One, heart pounding. He watched the squad's effort unravel beneath the crab's relentless assault. The mission they'd rehearsed in simulators 6 times over under every conceivable scenario was melting into chaos. He bit back a curse, hands tightening on the controls. Below, the barn's roof threatened to cave in. Sarah's wings fluttered against fallen beams. Then instinct seized him. He backflipped Crimson One into a strafing run, engines roaring. At an altitude, he backflipped Crimson One into a strafing run, engines roaring bright. At altitude, he'd never dreamed maneuverable. He angled the nose towards the crab's flank. Impact shook the cockpit. Ceramite shield shrieked in protest as hull plating shuddered. Sand geysered skyward, erupt in a black plume that blinded friend and foe alike. In that blinding storm, villagers spilled past the transport's lowered ramp into safety. The crab lunged, mandibles clattering. Its roar, a ruptured cord. Damien shoved Crimson One into a low arc, weaving beneath the dunes, as the beast's pincers scraped the air mere meters behind him. Each overhead pass carried the risk of sudden death. One miscalculation, one scrape through the wing, and he would be ground meat. But the squad needed a path to the barn. They needed hope. He cut the engines, spiraled the transport toward a narrow canyon entrance. The crowd followed with reckless fury, its massive legs digging trenches into the sand. Damien dipped Crimson One's wingtip, baiting the monster deeper into the pass. The world convulsed as the beast crashed through the ancient stone, its bulk dwarfing the natural arch. Then, from the gloom of the canyon walls, emerged a creature worthy of myth. the sand dragon. It was neither a dragon or an ogre, but a monstrous confluence of both. Its hulking torso bristled with armored scales, its ogre-like limbs ending in crushing talons, its elongated head crowned with horn frills, its eyes burned with intelligence, and its roar echoed for miles through the canyon. Without hesitation, the dragon lashed out. His claws closed around the sand crab's thorax, snapping ceramite like dry bone. Talons dug into the carapace with a seismic force. The crab struggled, pincers failing, but the dragon's grip was absolute. With a final earth-shattering crunch, the crab shell shattered and the canyon floor ran with dust and blood. Silence reigned as Damien guided Crimson One back to the extraction point. The squad, battered and wide-eyed, gathered survivors at the barn's scorched entrance. Blizzard's massive silhouette approached the transport, eyes on Damien's canopy. When the hatch lowered, the sergeant's hand clapped against Damien's shoulder in a grip that nearly cracked bone. "You did good, childling," Blizzard rumbled. His pride as deep and enduring as the Torios ice plains was woodward enough. Damien killed the engines and exhaled, shoulders slumped with relief and guilt intertwined. Above, the violet dawn had broken into pale gold. The squad filed aboard, each wounded but alive. As Crimson One lifted away, Damien allowed himself a rare smile, one forged in sand, storm, and flame. He knew this mission would be retold in every cadet's night watch, alongside tales of courage. But for Damien Ray, it was simple. Another dawn and proof that even the smallest spark, properly fanned, could ignite a star. Now, after hundreds of jumps, rescues, under fire, and a battle across Helix-twisted nebula, he had earned the nickname the Crimson Ray. Each time Admiral Oro passed by, his horn silhouette reminding him of how far he had come, Damien felt a surge of quiet pride. The roar of the simulators below and the distant hum of training drills no longer intimidated him. He had braved the scorching sands of Ares, guided panic squads through the collapsed domes, and flew into gravity wells that bent the rules of physics. Despite the danger, despite the knowledge that every flight would be his last, he would not trade his place in the drop bay for another. Being a drop pilot meant carrying the lives of his comrades on a wing and a prayer, and he wore that responsibility like a badge of honor. Rumors of Bellison's early graduation and relentless teasing once cut deeper than any enemy fire, but now Bellison's taunts felt like echoes in an empty cockpit. Damien no longer sought approval from an adopted brother who measured worth in kills and vengeance. What mattered most was Admiral Oro's nod of approval and Blizzard's low rumble. "You did good, kid." Those words, simple as they were, anchored Damien's confidence more firmly than any medal. He thought of Silkessa in her coral reef training halls, imagining her green leaf eyes glowing with pride. He carried her hope with him into every mission, a silent promise that he would not fail. When he flew into the storm of battle, he did so for those who could not pull the trigger, for those who waited for a rescue pod to break the horizon. The Academy's vaulted ceilings and polished floors could never match the raw beauty of a successful extraction. In the cockpit of the Crimson One, with emergency lights flaring and alarms demanding action, Damien felt most alive. He had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to face it over and over again. And in that moment of quiet triumph, he knew beyond a doubt that a single spark, properly fanned, could ignite an entire star.